This is the Standing Committee meeting for Economic Development Downtown Metropolitan Planning. My name is Khalid Bey. I'm the chair. Also, as you heard, we have my fellow committee members, Councilor Hogan, 2nd District Councilor, Councilor Joe Carney, 1st District, and Councilor at Large, Tim Rudd, from the administration. Oh, I see the Council President is on as well. From the administration, the Deputy Mayor, Jen Teff, Eric Edis, Heather Mendola. I don't know if there's anybody else. I'm sure there's somebody else, but those are the people I tend to talk to the most. So, Jen, information to start. We'll let you kick it off, if you will.
Sure. Yeah, happy to. So yesterday, you all a letter requesting legislation be drafted related to our coming application to the Empire State Development Corporation for the Downtown Revitalization Initiative, which I know most people are familiar with. It's an initiative that's around for the last maybe 4 years or so. I believe the city's applied in the past. It's a $10 million grant opportunity, and they award basically one city from each ESD region around the state to receive $10 million in funding to support redevelopment projects. And it's called the Downtown Revitalization Initiative, but the guidance that we've received as we've been talking to Empire State Development about our application and getting feedback on our past applications from previous years, that we don't have to just think about the area that we think of as our urban core or kind of downtown proper, basically Armory Square and the like. We could really have a much more expansive view of an area that maybe is a gateway to that part of downtown, and really make the case that additional investment in a more under-invested area actually could expand the boundaries of downtown. It could expand walkability, it could expand density, and create additional vibrancy that both boosts traffic and accessibility to what we all think of as kind of our primary downtown urban core, but also sort of those gateway neighborhoods that surround that area where we have seen less investment over the years. So, what we're actually proposing to do for this year's DRI is to look at a catchment area that is not necessarily, sort of what everyone thinks of as quote unquote downtown. We're proposing to focus instead just south and to the west of downtown, with the primary business corridor being West Onondaga. And as everyone will remember, when we did our corridor study with Camoin Associates, West Onondaga was one of the 9 corridors we looked at, in addition to several others. And we believe that West Onondaga is ripe as a business corridor for more investment. There's several potential projects in the pipeline. There's an active group of folks that have been working on all sorts of planning activities, to include the work under the Southwest Gateway Bridge and others. And so we've been starting to get a kind of a coalition of folks together across different community organizations. And the area we proposed, which I believe I sent a draft map around earlier today, it actually will get extended a little bit farther east to South Salina Street, and a little bit farther north to kind of the boundary with downtown. But basically that area really seeks to reinvest and revitalize parts of West Onondaga, the northern kind of intersection between West Onondaga and South Ave, as well as parts of South Salina, and some of the residential connective tissue between those business corridors as well. So another thing that we've gotten positive feedback from the state on preliminarily is that we believe we can use the DRI application to include some infill housing projects which goes along with our broader Resurgent Neighborhoods Initiative strategy and our infill housing strategy. And so we'll be looking to basically, kind of work with our broad coalition to really define that strategy, thinking pretty comprehensively about not only business development, but also really, residential development, potential infrastructure projects, beautification projects that really enhance that neighborhood and help with densification and walkability and those things, which really are the goals of this program. So I'll stop with kind of that introduction, and we're happy to answer more questions. I'll just say, just by way of introduction as well, that there are two council districts that are encompassed in this geography. It's mostly Councillor Hogan's district with a little bit of Councillor Anderson's district as well. And so we've talked to each of them as well as Councillor Bay in the last couple of weeks about this. And intend to include our two district councilors in the working group meeting happening over the next 4 or 5 weeks to get the application ready to be submitted.
All right. I have maybe a comment and a couple questions. Certainly it's been a position of myself and a few others over the years that, on top of or in addition to investment that has been made downtown, and neighborhood business corridors were a way to really bring communities back. I would like to believe that a lot of that dialogue over the years is what led to or culminated in the document that was produced that Eric Ennis provided myself last year on neighborhood business corridor studies. And I don't know if the rest of my colleagues got it, but if not, Eric, could you make sure that they get a copy of it? I appreciate it.
Yep.
That said, I'm interested to know. I gotta ask this because I'm always skeptical, and let me give my disclaimer, Jen. This has nothing to do with you, right, or anybody else, but I'm always skeptical when I hear stakeholders, and so I'm interested to know who that is exactly. And the reason why I say that, and I'll say this, Councilor Hogan, this is my disclaimer too. I am obviously in support of development of neighborhood business corridors. But when I consider, and I'm just throwing this out there, that still to date, there's no neighborhood business corridor that generates more potential sales tax revenue than South Salina Street. Investment always still intends to go elsewhere, and I always wonder why we're not going after that money immediately. That being, I'm not looking for an answer. I'm saying that to say it seems that Onondaga is an easier route because there's, minimal amount of residents there to argue about it. That's why I'm wondering who are those stakeholders that we're talking to, because, you have maybe the condominiums and maybe 2 apartment buildings on that corridor. The rest of it is all either vacant or services. So just interested, who are the stakeholders that's involved in this discussion?
Mm-hmm. Hey, Eric, do you have the list in front of you? I was trying to pull it up.
I do, yeah.
And my computer kept crashing. Would you mind going through the list of folks we've been working with on this kind of broader working group?
Absolutely. So a point well taken and well made. We want, as this process and as this application is built, we wanted to include a wide range of stakeholders. So in looking at this, we're spanning everywhere from the downtown committee, which represents certainly the downtown Syracuse area. The West Onondaga Street corridor has, in the past, they've had WOZA, which is the West Onondaga Street Alliance. That group is no longer as organized, but now you do have a number of business owners that do meet and talk to each other on a regular basis. We've engaged with, I would say, if not all, most of the property owners and the business members of that association that do talk regularly. We've talked to folks on the South Ave corridor because South Ave plays a critical role. And then there's a portion of the near west side that ties in with this as well. And so we're talking to those in the near west side area immediately kind of on that West Street, West Onondaga, and South Ave, almost like right near that intersection where all those roads mix and meet. We've been talking to folks in the philanthropy community. You look at where Salt City Market is, and it immediately extends once that railroad bridges. That vibrancy really starts to slow down. But there's so many properties that are ripe for potential. There's a number of land bank properties as well, so the land bank is going to be involved in these discussions. So it's a mix of property owners, the nonprofit community, directly neighborhood residents that we want to particularly be aware of this, and we've been doing that through a number of channels. And then we've had Councilor Hogan and Councilor Allen directly on our email thread and our email list. So, and I'm happy to go into names. I wasn't sure if you wanted specific names. That we do have a list of those, but from an organization standpoint, that's many of them.
No, I'm not looking for, and this is certainly with due respect to your point of a list of names, and who knows how extensive the list may be. But I asked the question almost to communicate a message that we're all familiar with, and that is, and I don't want to, certainly not putting words in Councilor Hogan's mouth, but I know how passionate he is about the second council district, and oftentimes when you consider the discussions about stakeholders, if I walked into James Geddes, which is the most immediately near that corridor, I'm pretty sure nobody over there knows anything about the discussion. So I think it's our responsibility to assure, because those are going to be the people who will call Councilor Hogan and others, not saying that the project is bad or not, but just for them to find out and be aware of what's going on. And because it's their neighborhood. The other thing I'll mention, I know that a lot of the development, there was a mention of infill development, which I'm assuming is relative to this project, which, again, not in any way contrary to the second district, but I have concerns there. Consider that most of the demolitions, they do happen on the south side first, near west side second. But I don't believe those properties on the near west side that have been demolished throughout the west side are a part of this development project, because they're not in close proximity necessarily. And so I expressed that those concerns, because I don't want us to, and I'm not questioning anybody's integrity here. I don't want us to paint a picture like we're doing something for struggling neighborhoods when we're really not. You know what I mean? So, and of course, I have a concern about whatever those developed housing projects are, those living spaces, that they're not so expensive that people who live there can't go in there, like those $200,000 condominiums they built across the street from James Geddes projects, right? We can't have more of that going on that corridor. So I'm just throwing that out there for consideration, Councilor Hogan. Like I said, I don't want to speak for you because it's your district. I support you, my man. I'm going to digress for now. And any other of my colleagues have any comments, questions, please fire away.
Councilor, I agree with you on everything you said. I certainly think South Salina Street is right to have some investment in it, too. This part of the second council district is sort of unique in as much as it's residential, and there are some small businesses that have been very successful there through the hard work of the people that own the businesses. I'm thinking of Tim Wentworth, who has the only cooperative on West Onondaga Street, and then you have like Ed Griffin Nolan, and you have the people at Salt City Coffee, and I would think this would go up. I think this would benefit White Street, Tallman Street, and a few of those other streets where we still have a lot of folks that own houses there. And I remember last time I was on the council sitting down with the folks on Lincoln Avenue regarding that Syracuse behavioral place that they put up there. And those folks were adamant about their neighborhood. I would love to bring them into this fold too, as far as we'll let them know what's going on too. And I share the same concerns with you on, 331 Gifford, 427 Tully, all those high rises. Those folks have got to be aware of that, because, we still have that situation. We're crossing a busy West Street to avail themselves to a lot of things. So, yeah, I share the same concerns you do, Councilor Bay.
May I ask a question? Jennifer, I know that when I talked to you last week, we talked about exactly where the infill construction will go, and I just can't wrap my mind around it right now, thinking about it in that area, in that corridor, where would you actually put homes, or are there going to be like single family homes? Are they apartments? How does that look in that corridor?
Yeah, so I believe, I'm trying to pull up the map that I sent around just so I can reference to the streets. And if Michelle's on, feel free to chime in. My understanding was that in that particular area, the infill sites had identified, I think were more for the two-family rental units versus the single-family developments. But Michelle, are you on? Could you verify that?
She's talking, but we can't hear her.
Michelle, are you on?
Okay.
Yeah. Michelle Sapansky, Neighborhood and Business Development. The specific area where the streets would be, it would be in the Kellogg-Holland area. We also had some proposed housing up for towards Seymour and Shawnard, which is a couple blocks up. That wouldn't technically be a part of the DRI proposal. And our preferred situation with it as far as what the specific types of housing would be is that it would be a mix of single family and two family. That was in our proposed plan, but I think that was all kind of subject to the specifics of the funding, which is obviously an ongoing thing that we're working through.
Okay. And then along Salina Street, what would be the improvements there? Because like you said, it'll go down to Tallman.
So the specific the specific catchments that we were looking at, I think there was a couple more commercial projects that were kind of through the Tallman area, and we wanted the residentials to kind of be an opportunity there in terms of site selection of what was currently things that we had site control over that we could viably get site control over from a residential perspective. There was a lot of movement on a couple, particularly in the Lincoln Ave area, land bank houses that there was already contracts in for. So as we were looking at the sites, there was kind of some movement that was already going that we didn't have any in there at this time, but certainly if they were in the catchment, we would have a little bit of flexibility if we, to kind of move that way if possible.
So Michelle, you would move to Lincoln towards Tallman, correct?
So those are all considered in the catchment area, but as far as what we've proposed thus far for infill housing, they're a little bit beyond. They're like the block selections that we were looking at, they're not in there currently right now. Does that make sense?
No.
So in terms of where we have specific site buildability right now and where we have site control that we could put something, there were other things that were kind of moving that we didn't put in kind of in our recommendations of kind of the 8 clusters where we were looking at for infill. As we were looking at the sites, the buildability and our ability to kind of make a solid block impact in those areas quickly, it was going to be a lot more dispersed than it was going to be on Kellogg and Holland or Seymour and Shawnard.
Okay.
So if I could jump in maybe to follow up with for clarity, with Councilor Allen's questions. If I'm not mistaken, the extension to Tallman from Onondaga ends at Midland. I'm right? That's what it says. It says from Tallman from Onondaga to Tallman in the email. So I want to clear, because you just spoke about potential land bank owned property on Lincoln, right? Yes, no? Okay.
Yeah.
And that part of Lincoln is not in the 4th district, that's in the 2nd. So I just wanted to clarify what we're talking about here, because it doesn't reach the 4th from what you're describing. It's not in the 4th at all. Everything you're talking about is in the 2nd district, with the exception of when you reach South Ave, if in fact you cross Tallman. If you don't cross Tallman on South Ave, you're still not in the 4th, you're in the 2nd.
Right.
The 4th district starts at Tallman.
Tallman, exactly.
That's all. So South Ave going from Onondaga to Tallman is not in the 4th district. That's in the 2nd district. And Lincoln Ave is in the 2nd district.
Mm-hmm.
Until you cross Tallman. And just for clarity, the west side of Midland across Tallman is in the 2nd district. East side of Midland on Tallman the east side of Midland across Tallman headed toward downtown. That's in the 4th. So it sounds, that's what I'm saying, like when you talk about your catch area, if I'm not mistaken, Michelle, the areas that you say may lie slightly outside is like the Highland and the others.
Yeah.
Is in your catch area.
Yeah, no, you're correct. I'm looking at the map right now, and the way that it is drawn, it is very much kind of zigzagged over those blocks. I think the larger point being that we still wanted to make sure that we were engaging the counselors that were representing all of those areas, as it is such a close shared boundary. I think when you think about commercial corridors, people that are using commercial corridors and like where you're, obviously it's very close to both lines, and so we wanted to make sure that everyone was involved.
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear about the area you're talking about, though. None of that is the 4th district. So only downtown are you in the 4th. But when you move outside of downtown, as soon as you cross the creek on Onondaga, you're no longer in the 4th district in that area.
Right. Yep.
I have a related but slightly off-topic question that people might know the answer. If not, can I ask now?
Sure.
Okay. Earlier in the year and a year ago, we had a presentation from housing advocates talking about rental, basically like rent increase controls, but I forget all the terminology at the moment. But and then they came back around this year because the state made a number of changes, and the changes require that we do a vacancy study. And I was wondering if that vacancy study, I think it's roughly $30,000. I believe they reached out to the administration people too, but I kind of haven't thought about asking until now when we're talking about the nature of the buildings and neighborhoods changing and stuff. I think it would basically regulate like the rent of buildings with more than 6 units that were older than 1972, something to that effect. But we have to do a vacancy study because the law only applies if you have like less than 5% vacancy. Anyways, is that being paid for at all in the budget? Is there a way we could use the HUD money that's coming in to pay for that study?
Councilor Roy, this is Deputy Mayor. Just before we were derailed, I had touched base with those folks that you referred me to. So as you were talking, it jogged my memory that I hadn't had that conversation. I think that is a good use for CDBG funds.
Is it in the budget now? We have to adjust things, or do you have the flexibility to?
It isn't now. Mike is working on the CD budget as we speak.
Okay, maybe can you just mention it to him, because I think that would be a good thing to take care of.
Oh yeah, he's on the call right now.
I'm here, Counselor, and yeah, I'll catch up with the Deputy Mayor after this on that.
Thank you.
On the topic of the $10 million, I don't know if any of my committee members have any additional questions. If not, the concerns expressed is just that nobody certainly wants to stop the project, so you don't have to worry about nothing like that. We want to see it happen. I just want us to be clear about what it is and what's happening and who's involved in it. So I'm prepared for it to move forward. Councilor Rudd, your position?
Fine, I vote, yeah, move forward.
Councilor Kearney?
Yeah, I'm fine. Yep, I'm good with it. Sorry, I couldn't mute myself.
No problem. Councilor Hogan, I assume you're fine?
Yes.
All right, we took up a lot of time with that. I'm not sure if there's any other items from MBD or if Heather Lemondola has anything.
Good afternoon, councilors. I do have 2 items from Planning Commission meeting on Monday. We have a special permit for a care home at 125 Green Street, and this is Helio Health. So for some reason or another, they never had a special permit, never received one. They were doing some improvements, so that's why it came before Planning Commission. There are no waivers involved, so you'll see this on your agenda next Wednesday. And then 1100 North Salina Street is a special permit modification to I think it's a restaurant within a convenience store, and it really has to do with waiving the signage. So those are the 2 new items that I have from Monday's Planning Commission meeting.
I have no questions. Any of my colleagues?
None.
No, they're both fine with me.
Fine.
No, yeah.
I know I'm not on your committee, Councilor Bay.
Oh, you're on every committee. Go ahead, President.
Okay. So I want to ask a question because Heather, going back to 125 Green Street, Helio Health, over the weekend there was some noise being kicked up around the community about that facility. So I know it's just a name change, but it's brought attention to what the facility is again.
Like bad noise, like adverse.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just wanted to throw that out there.
We can send an inspector out to see what's going on, or is it like more police nuisance related?
Basically, police nuisance related.
Okay.
Heather.
Yeah.
Council President, I'll get Deputy Chief Trudell on it.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry, are we talking about 125 Green Street or their actual large facility on Salina?
I'm specifically talking about 125 Green.
No, I understand that. I mean, that facility, I think, is probably, and if anyone knows can correct me if I'm wrong, it's like one of the oldest halfway homes in the country, so I'm not surprised that it doesn't have a special permit because it's been around longer than, any of us have been around. I've heard issues with the actual large facility, their office space, Helio Health, on Salina there, but I haven't heard anything issues with the actual 125 Green. Is that, Council President, is that what you're referring to, or the actual large facility?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm referring to Green. It just started over the weekend.
Well, if I could chime in on the North Salina Street one, it is a nightmare. Period. Explanation point. It's really affected that business corridor, and maybe we should all have a meeting on that at some point because the imposition on the businesses have moved out of the area. So.
Council, this is Eric Gunnis, just neighborhood and business development. Just briefly to add, we've been having some discussions with Jeremy Klemanski and the head of Helio's leadership, and then North Side Up, a number of business owners on that 300 block of North Salina. This has been dating back for several months, and we've engaged on numerous occasions about ways to structure their programming differently and the ways that people are waiting and loitering outside of the facility when people are coming and going between appointments. So your point is right. I mean, we've spoken directly with property owners that have been negatively impacted. With Love is just a few storefronts up the road. So we've been talking about that, and certainly I can give you a call separately offline and we can talk more because that conversation has been started, and Jeremy's been very open to it and starting to make changes to improve the situation there.
My understanding, they had an opportunity to move from that building. They did not take it. I would like to see that happen, but we will talk offline on this.
Thank you.
All right, so if there's nothing else on that, on those two items, Councilor Hogan, you good?
Yes, so far, Councilor Bay.
Councilor Kearney?
Yep, I'm fine.
Rod?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Heather. Any other items before we proceed over into finance, since we've run over time a little bit? Is there any other items to come before the Committee for Economic Development?
Councilor Bay, what was the name of the first project that we went over?
It is, Eric Ennis, could you answer that for me, the $10 million project?
Yeah, it's the Downtown Revitalization Initiative, and the acronym is DRI. It's a $10 million competition from the state of New York, from Empire State Development.
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, so if there is nothing else for Economic Development, Councilor Rudd, now become the Finance Committee meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we can just roll right into it if everybody's on.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Actually, can you pause for like 30 seconds while I break up this video?
Sure, Mr. Conroy.
Take your time, Jimmy. You're like Cecil B. DeMille.
Thank you, counselors. I'm going to sign off. This is Jen Tift. I'll talk to you later.
Thanks, Jen.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.